Hi, welcome to the second ever episode of The Weekly Wave. I'm Matthew Lyons.
And I'm Aaron Johnson.
And our guest here today is health and gym teacher, Miss Kate Casey. How are you?
Good. How are you guys?
Good,
Doing
thank
all
you.
right.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so
Thank you for coming.
We brought you on to do this piece on gene editing. And Chinese scientist He Jinkao, hopefully I didn't butcher that, back in November claimed to have altered the genetic makeup of a pair of twins in order to have a resistance to the AIDS virus. And genetic editing is relatively banned in most parts of the world, like USA and Europe. And the controversy around him right now is because he's being tried under the Chinese court for basically researching alone, acting alone. And people are wondering right now, since he's being under an investigation and since this is just a big issue, is this right and is this ethical?
This is tough.
Yeah.
I think there could be benefits because in this case, if he did in fact prevent the child from being born with the HIV virus, then that would be huge. But I do worry about the ramifications down the road, what that means for other people, how people would then use this to their advantage to make it like a consumer based for, gene altering your baby to look how you want it to. I think I'd love to know a little bit more of his research. I'd like to know if in 2 years from now, is this child still HIV free? Because it said that it was a resistance to it. So if this child is exposed to it later, did they develop it? Did they not develop it? Or are they resistant for it in the future for life? And if that's the case, then maybe they could do something with that information to prevent other people from receiving the virus. But I think it could be a slippery slope to go down.
Yeah.
Right. So now that we know that this technology exists and that doctors could practice it, what do you think the next step should be?
I would have to think there's got to be some more rules and regulations. I think before this happened, it was the what if, and now the what if is we can do this. So if this technology is true and it's able to be reproduced, so we know it's valid, I think there's got to be a lot of policies, regulations, laws, ethical committees put together to figure out when this could happen, why, what regulations are around it, who could do it, who doesn't do it, why are they doing it? Is it for disease-based only? Is it because I want a baby with blue eyes? Like, what's the why? I think that would have to be looked into.
Yeah, and as you just mentioned, like, do I want a baby with blue eyes? Do you believe this medical practice will escalate into the future where people can customize their children? And what I mean by that is, like, yeah, obviously a baby with blue eyes if they want blonde hair. Yeah.
I would worry on where people would take it. I think if you look at how people are treating other people right now around the world or how people do, some people do gender reveals for their baby and other people are not giving their child a gender. Like, I think there's a great divide. So I'd be curious to see, like, where does this take it? Again, I think it could be a slippery slope if people are trying to genetically modify their child because they don't want them to have a certain eye color or hair color or trait. I personally would have issues with that. I think we're all meant to be here for a reason and we are who we are.
Yeah. Like, I definitely believe that people should be born the way they are, like you said. Just altering someone so they look good in your standards, I feel, is wrong. Everybody is beautiful and everyone should look the way they are.
Mm-hmm. I totally agree. You said that very well. It's like you have to be comfortable with who you are. And could you imagine being a child that grew up and when you were 15, you found out that you were genetically modified to have blue eyes? Like
how your parents wanted.
Yeah, exactly. So does that cause some resentment? Are there issues with that? Are there other, peer issues that come about that? I just worry what the issues would be down the road.
And I think that could escalate into changing basically everything around the world, from the culture to how people learn history. I feel like when people lose their individuality, that can essentially change everything.
Right. Imagine if we were all the exact same person.
It would be a very boring place.
It would be so boring, right?
Yeah.
So what makes you you is what makes you unique. And I think if we start to lose some of those pieces, that I would be a little worried.
Yeah, I don't know why. I just imagine a bunch of, like, Taylor Swifts walking around with all this, like, genetic altering.
Yeah. Very boring.
Yep.
No offense to Taylor Swift, but
Yeah.
Yep.
We like individuality here.
Yes.
Agreed.
So thank you very much for coming out.
Thank you so
Oh, you're
much.
welcome. Thanks for having me.
Do you have any words before you go, or are you all set?
No, I think you guys covered everything.
All right. No, well, thank you so much for coming
Thank
out.
you. Hi, and welcome back to the Weekly Wave. With us here today is art teacher Michelle Poirier. How are you, Michelle?
Great. How are you guys?
I'm
Good.
doing all right. How are you, Matt?
I'm all right.
It's been an all right day. So Michelle, you just went on a trip to Paris with current teachers Christian Gearhart and Sue Peck. First of all, how did the trip help you become a better chaperone? Because obviously it was an educational trip. EF Tour sponsored it.
So I feel much better prepared to lead kids across the world to Japan in June. I wasn't really expecting how much of a toll it takes on you to travel across the country. So we flew overnight, and you wake up and you hit the ground running, like you fly and it's nighttime, you get there and it's morning and you're like, all right, let's go to the Louvre. So, it kind of gives you an idea of how to be positive when you're tired and like how to still experience something like in a fresh way. It also helped us kind of figure out how to navigate a foreign city without having to knowing how to speak the language. So I don't speak any French, and yet we still took the metro. We got ourselves to the Eiffel Tower by ourselves, and it took a long time, but we figured out how to do it. So now I feel much more confident that we'll be okay.
Yeah. It's been said that French people are rude sometimes. Is that actually true, or is that just a myth?
No, I don't find that was true. I think it comes from a lot of times French, when they're traveling, like on the train and things like that, they're by themselves and they're kind of quiet and they're like, doing their own thing. When you have a bunch of like Americans come on the train and loud and boisterous and like singing and talking really loud, you get some looks.
Yeah.
So, I think it was a good lesson of like self-awareness of like being out of the country and kind of trying to like blend in a little bit and not bring so much attention to yourself. But for the most part, we found everybody was really nice to us. If we didn't speak French, they spoke English. Even if we tried to speak
really?
French, they would be like, good try, and they would answer us in English anyway. But they were all super nice and friendly and welcoming and like, patient with us. So yeah, I think that's like a really bad stereotype about
Yeah,
them.
because you always hear about that.
Yeah,
French.
right. No, I didn't feel that way about them.
You always like,
Good answer, because if we had any French viewers, they could have got very offended by that.
Yeah.
So, dodge a bullet there. Is there anything that you saw, heard, or learned that would help you teach art here at Abington?
I think it really opened my eyes to actually going and seeing things in real life. I've taken courses in medieval and Gothic architecture, and like you write papers about these cathedrals, and like you look at pictures, and you think you know about it, and then you go inside one of these like actual cathedrals like Notre Dame, and you're like, oh my God, like it changes your entire life. So like actually going and looking at a painting is going to be way different than your teacher telling you about it in a book.
Yeah.
So I think that's good advice. Just like go experience something.
Right.
In your life.
obviously there's differences between the art in European cultures and American cultures. What do you find was like the most obvious differences with like styles and techniques?
I think it was really cool to see the places that these modern painters got their start. If you look at Monet paintings, then you can go to the place where Monet actually painted.
That's awesome.
You can like see where Picasso had his studio. You know what I mean? Like, it was really interesting. We went to this place called Montmartre, where a lot of these artists got their start, and it's still like an artist village. Now it's kind of like street artists are working around there. But you can go to a cafe where like Van Gogh used to hang out. So like the style may be kind of similar. But it feels more authentic there because you can see how they saw the light on the Seine River. So it kind of, it makes the paintings come alive a little bit.
Now, you mentioned Monet and Picasso. Is there one artist that stood out to you in any way?
From France, Picasso wasn't from France. I think he was from
Spain, yeah.
Right? So Monet and Van Gogh, I think, were like the big names there. I don't think Van Gogh was from France either, but he painted a lot in France.
Did he cut off his ear? Was that Van Gogh?
He did.
Yeah,
He did.
yeah.
There's controversy behind that. Maybe someone else did. We don't know.
Conspiracy theory.
What'd you ask me again? What was the question?
Any artist that stood out to you in any way?
Oh, okay. So there was a museum called the Musée d'Orsay, which I didn't actually go to, but it was all about like French Impressionism. So I think that's like the place to go if you really want to see like authentic French painting. And like you'll see all those famous names, like Pissarro and Seurat, and all these like really awesome Impressionist painters.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, that was awesome.
You're welcome.
Thanks for watching. Tune in next week to see an all-new episode of The Weekly Wave.
And make sure to follow us on our Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at the Green Wave Gazette.
As always, I'm Matt Lyons.
And I'm Aaron Johnson.
We'll see you next week.
Goodbye.